sound. No sound, and now you can hear me. It's okay. So I know that you can see me. So now we also know that you can hear me because I think I turned on the sound. A thumbs up would be wonderful, but I trust that you can hear me now. Perfect. I'm going to get started here. So we're going to talk about designing AI assistants, why and how, and what should we be thinking about as we create conversational experiences. And we always start with this slide. It's from the movie Her, and I think a lot of you may have seen this movie. It's about a guy that buys an operating system, a voice assistant, and he installs it on his computer. And as he does that, initially it's very unfamiliar. It's very, very awkward to talk to this artificial being, but then they get to know each other and they familiarize each other, and they sort of become friends, and they become very good friends, and they fall in love, and they have this relationship. And then he is sort of confronted with the fact that she's talking to tens of thousands of other people at the same time, and he ends up uncanny valley, and he drops out of that voice assistant and never wants to talk to it again. But it sort of shows you that people and AI assistants, we will be living together and working together. So it's very important that we learn to communicate with each other. And that's where a conversation designer comes in. Conversation design is therefore going to be an important role. And we estimate that there's going to be about 5 million people working in this field of conversational AI, designing these conversations. And that's what we focus on. So we train and certify conversation designers to make these AI assistants more helpful and natural at scale. So why are we doing that? Well, the modern business is looking to automate about 85% of the conversations that they have with employees and customers and all types of people, and on all these different conversational channels, right? And what they're doing is they're all building these in-house conversational teams. So here are some of our clients. Vodafone, they have 100 people working on these chatbots. JP Morgan has multiple teams of about 20 people each. Dutch Bank, ABN AMRO has 30 people working on their chatbot. So just like you cannot imagine a company without engineers today, you cannot imagine a company without conversation designers 5 years from now. But what is it really, right? What is conversation design? If there's one slide I'd like you to remember from this talk, it's this one. If we have a conversation between an artificial brain and a human brain, then two things stand out. One has an artificial brain, and the other person has a human brain, a biological brain. And they both have their own limitations and capabilities, and they both have their own triggers that they need to function. So for an artificial brain, it needs to understand the intent and entities and contexts and variables. So we have all this natural language understanding technology that helps with that. So people can speak freely, and it's being translated into something the computer understands. But a human brain needs empathy and helpfulness and sometimes encouragement and a compliment. So we need to make sure that the language we give back to people actually has those elements in it, because otherwise it will not function and the conversation breaks very quickly. So if we want to have good conversations between people and AI assistants, then technology, psychology, and language need to be equally important. And you now see a lot of companies focusing very much on the technology side, where they would be much more successful if they would think more about the human psychology and what language means for people. So what we do, we actually have 3 certificates. So those 3 key skill sets that you need to make a chatbot or a voice assistant successful, we have courses and certification programs for that. All of it is centered around our conversation design workflow, which I just want to show you things of today, right? So 3 mistakes that we see everybody make. That's getting a little better. The industry is maturing a little bit, but starting with technology. A lot of times we just put engineers in the room, we start building, and we hope for the best. But that's not a good way to start. It's very expensive. You're not interacting with your customers while you make it. So there's a very big chance that it's not going to work. Or a lot of time we focus on knowledge management. So We have this tendency to give all the information that we have with all the exceptions that are there. And it creates these chatbots that just have way too much information in them. And they create cognitive overload. They're not friendly. They're not human-centric. Or we start with the business process. So we look at how the business is organized. We create a flow chart based on that. And then, we put some words on it and we hope for that to work, right? But people don't talk the way your business is organized, and therefore that doesn't help either. So we need to find a better way of doing this. And there are really three main steps in conversation design. So first we have the requirements, then we have happy conversation design where we focus on the happy flows, and then we go over to detailed conversation design. I just want to show you a few of these things. So during this requirements phase, really what we do before we start a project is look, to what extent are we technically capable of having a conversation? What kind of conversation are we going to be having? What are the use cases? Who are we going to be talking to? That's the audience. And who's best to do that on our behalf? And that is the bot persona. I'll show you a little bit about that. So this one's always interesting. This one's also nice. So we all see a building, but we also see a little face in that building, which is quite interesting. This one's very cute, right? It's called pareidolia. So we have the tendency to see very human elements in things that clearly aren't human. And we cannot unlearn this. This is just how people act and behave. When people hear a voice, within 1.5 seconds, they create an image of who that voice belongs to. Is it a man or a woman? Where are they from? What do they look like? How could it be of value to me? What do I expect of them, actually? So we have that going on. So when you have a chatbot or a voice assistant, you have 1 million people interacting with it, then 1 million people will create an image of who they're actually talking to. And you don't want that. You want to take control of that process so that you can create a consistent, trustworthy, and likable experience. So if you don't have that persona, all of those things are in jeopardy. And it's going to put people into that uncanny valley that we talked about earlier. And it really means that if a robot is very mechanical, then people are okay with that. And if the robot is very human-like, then that is fine too. But if it's somewhat in the middle and we're not really sure what it is, then our brain is conflicted and we end up in the uncanny valley. And the reason for that is we use a different part of our brain when we interact with something than when we interact with someone. So if our brain doesn't really know what we're interacting with, it creates a very eerie feeling, an uncanny feeling, and we don't want to talk to it anymore. So you want to make sure that you take control of what your persona is like. So what we do before we do any design, we think about the character. Who is actually speaking these words on behalf of our brands? What's their job title? What's the backstory? How do they relate to the customer? And you want to create a very detailed biography for this person so that the team knows how to talk to people in a very consistent and effective way. And once we do that, we go to happy conversation design. And this is what I want to show you real quick. This is the fun part, kind of. We're going to buy some sneakers today. At first, so that's our use case. And then we're going to look at the bot needs and the user needs, do some sample dialogue, and do some rewrites. So we always take this canvas, and we want to mentalize the conversation. So we look at, what does somebody want to do? What do they want to know? What are they motivated by? What are they worried about before they even, talk to a chatbot? What do they expect of the experience? Do they expect the chatbot to be very stupid, or do they expect them to be very smart? These are very important things. And then, from the bot's perspective, what are some of the things that we can do and can't do? What is information that I can tell or stuff that I already know? What are questions that I need to ask? And what I do is I want to really mentalize the context of a conversation before I do any design work. And once we have that, so let's fill it in for our sneakers. So, I want to buy cool sneakers. I want to know which ones to get, and I want to look cool and get fit. And I'm kind of afraid. What if I, buy the sneakers? Turns out that I got the wrong pair, and then my friends make fun of me. So these are all the things that take place in the human brain. And, from the assistant's perspective, We can help you select some sneakers and add them to the cart, but we cannot identify people or actually do the transaction. We must ask about your running goals and your shoe size, etc. And once we have this, we do sample dialogue, we do role playing. And what happens here is two people, they get into character, so they study what we just wrote down on the canvas, and the other person's and then they sit back to back from each other and they role play this conversation. It's like improvisational theater. So they become, the pages, the post-its that we just put on the canvas, and they have the conversation. And they do this a bunch of times, and each time they do it, we better understand what actually happens in a conversation, where there's stress, where there's anxiety, how to motivate people. And we create our first draft through that. So really the best way to design a conversation is to get into character and have the conversation. And once you have that, you can really start improving on it. So there's a few fundamental design techniques that always need to be part of it. And they're part really of happy conversation design. So let's say, okay, you want to buy sneakers. Do you know which one? So this is something that we would come up with. Okay is what we call an acknowledgement. And it tells someone that I've heard you, right? I'm listening. It's like the nod. It's like, okay, I got you. You want to buy some sneakers. That's called an implicit confirmation. What I'm doing here is I'm repeating back to the user what they said, so that the user knows that I understood them properly, and it tells them that what I'm going to say next is actually relevant, right? Do you know which ones? That's the prompt. That tells someone that it's their turn to speak again. So using a question gives the initiative back to the other person, and it keeps the conversation going. Acknowledgement, confirmation, prompt. These are your fundamentals in conversation design. Whenever you create a chatbot or a voice assistant, you always double check, does every sentence have an acknowledgement, a confirmation, and a prompt? So now we've had this conversation, we've polished it up a little bit. What we're going to do now is a Wizard of Oz test. And what that means is we take our first draft and we invite people to test it out. And they can speak freely, and we stick to our script. And what we do here is we gather feedback from lots of people and get it to work for more. All right, so we mentalized the conversation, we had the conversation, and now during Wizard of Oz test, we're going to make this conversation inclusive. But what we discovered as we tested it out with a bunch of people is that they were not ready to buy yet. So now we need to see if we can optimize this conversation for behavior. What do we want people to do? We want them to buy sneakers. So how do we make that easier for them? It's part of the expert rewrite that you see here on the screen. And we look for the BJ Fogg behavioral model for this expert rewrite. And it pretty much means that you can prompt any desired behavior by increasing motivation and ability. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll show you this. What we have developed is really a collection of copywriting techniques that you can apply for all these situations. So if you want to increase motivation, you use social proof or a positive feedback or anticipatory enthusiasm. And we're going to be using some of these techniques in this sneaker buying journey. That should be fun. So this was the original message, right? Okay, you want to buy sneakers. Do you know which ones? So that's the acknowledgement, the confirmation, and the prompt. Now I'm going to add anticipatory enthusiasm. Okay, I'm going to help you find the right sneakers. Does that sound good? So now I'm putting the image in the user's head that they're going to get the right sneakers. Right? So that's, I know I'm going to be successful, and that motivates me to continue this conversation. But we could do more. We can do expectation management. Okay, to help you find the right sneakers, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. Does that sound good? All right, so I'm telling them they're going to get the right sneakers, but I'm also saying this is what's going to happen. Next, expectation management, 3 simple questions, and then you're going to get your right sneakers. But we can do much more. Okay, to help you find the right sneakers, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. For most people, this only takes a minute. Does that sound good? So what we're doing here, we're applying social proof by telling people that there's more customers using this chatbot to buy sneakers that they love. It makes me feel very confident that this is going to be a good experience. It increases my motivation. But then there's even more. We can apply choice architecture. Okay, to help you find the right sneakers, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. For most people, this only takes a minute. Does that sound good? Yes, no, tell me more. So I'm giving 3 buttons, but actually 2 of them are positive options, the yes and the tell me more. All right, so by giving them more positive options, I increase the chances of them giving me a positive answer. All right, so we can apply all these behavior design principles to make one message in a chatbot much more effective. You can do this for all your messaging and really increase the success of your chatbot. We can even apply personality now to it. Okay, to find the right sneakers, I'm going to run you through 3 simple questions. For most people, it only takes a minute. Ready, set, go. And then let's go. Now, let's do this. All right, so now we have some character, some personality in this chatbot, and it's going to make it much more successful than your standard chatbot, right? So once we have this, right, so we've mentalized the conversation, we've role-played the conversation, we made it inclusive in the Wizard of Oz test, and now we've optimized it for behavior, greatly increasing the success of this chatbot. What we're going to do now is actually do AI training. So how do we make sure that we understand everything that people say, where we have an inclusive model that understands people's linguistic preferences. We think about the long tail. When do we hand them over to an agent or to a web page, etc.? And what do we do when people say something we don't understand, etc., in the repair flow? So that all happens in detailed conversation design. And then we implement and obviously continuously optimizations and iterations. So at CDI, we really have one major workflow that takes each use case, usually that comes from the business or data science or analytics, and we first run it through the happy path that we just talked about, and then we run it through detailed conversation design. And at enterprises, teams just go through these steps on a daily basis to make these chatbots more successful. So what we've done at CDI in our courses is really all those bullets here, they're probably too small to read, but all of these are different lectures and classes with all these techniques of how to make these assistants more successful. And there's a whole bunch of there. And if you actually go to our website, we have a free course that you can just follow and enjoy. And there's about 2 minutes left. So there's time for some questions. If you want more information or you want to get the slides that I just shared and get access to that free course, just shoot me a message here at Hans at Conversational Design Institute, or just go to the website. I'm also easy to find on Twitter and LinkedIn, if that's where you prefer to search. Let's see if there's anything here in the chat. It's fine, it's fine. No sound, that was earlier. There's no questions. Oh, wow, this is an easy crowd today. Let's see, I just see the comments. Are we all good? Did we learn anything? I'll just ask you all questions. I'll take that as a yes. Okay. No questions. Easy crowd today. Okay, thank you so much then.